right, well, we are going to get started with a very special Innovate Pasadena Friday Coffee Meetup for Connect Week. Over the next week, there will be a number of events across the city, so please check them out. You can find them on connectpasadena.com. I'm just your host, but there are many organizers who actually make this thing happen. We have Evan over here, and John, and Wayne on the line. We have Doreen, we have Toby, we have Diana this morning from Innovate Pasadena as well. And they put in so much work to make this happen each month. So we're excited to have all of you here. We're excited for our speaker this morning. We also want to thank our generous sponsors. We have Innovate Pasadena, we have Echo Factory, and as well, we want to thank our host today, Founders Stage here in Pasadena. It's a gorgeous location. So if you're looking for an office, please check out this space. We also want to thank Jeremy, who helped us get everything set up this morning from Founders Stage. We love to learn about some of our attendees, so I am going to pass the mic off to Wayne to say hello to some of you.
Thank you. Hello, good morning. And please let me know when that coffee gets back online, because I see our crowd over there huddling like the hungry masses, waiting for some hope and belief. Hey guys, good morning. Good to see you. Excited to be back here. What we're trying to do during this period is just to get to know you a little bit, introduce some of you to the group that maybe haven't done that before. Let me ask you, is there anyone that's your first time here today? Terrific. Okay, I'm going to come over to you, and if you don't mind, you'll have to learn a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about you and what kind of project you're doing.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Veronica. I am an executive coaching consultant. I work with small businesses and professionals. So I go in and I help them bring in wellness programs and diversity programs, and I do individual coaching for themselves.
Great. How long have you been in the Pasadena area? And how did you get
I have been around the Boston area all my life, and I started working around for about 4 years ago. And I've been in the group for a while, but it's my first time here today.
Welcome. Terrific. And you know, anyone who wears the nice jacket and it looks like you're ready for that meeting coming up later today, I've got to find out what's going on with you. Who are you talking to?
Good morning. My name is Park. I actually moved to Pasadena area 2 or 3 years ago from Washington City. I'm a consultant doing some international trade engagements, and I just here just try to get a connect. Yeah.
What country did you go? What area?
Most the East Asian countries, China mostly.
Did you have to find out?
So website, Pasadena now, I think.
So, well, great to have you. Terrific. And I want to introduce you to someone who is newly joined the professional ranks, and he's here today. His name is Jake. Jake just graduated, and he came all the way from Michigan, and I'm going to have him tell you a little bit about what he's doing, and if you guys know of any way that you can help him, because we've all been there before, think about it. Let's, Jake, introduce yourself.
I am Jake. I just graduated from the University of Michigan in computer science and mathematics. I'm starting my networking journey. It's big and scary, but jumping in there first.
Great. And what kind of roles are you looking for? What like to do?
Strong history in data analytics, AI, machine learning, but I'm open to a lot, pretty much anything.
Great. Well, you're doing the right thing by being here. Congratulations on graduating and welcome. And was there one more back here? Hello. No, she's pointing to you.
Oh,
Hi, welcome, and we'd like you to introduce yourself.
Good morning, I'm Melanie. I have not had caffeine yet, so it makes me feel the switch on people well. I'm a friend of Chrissy's and changing jobs in the nonprofit sector. So thanks to Chrissy for the invitation. Oh, and one of the founding executive director of Jericho Road, Pasadena, which is a capacity building nonprofit here in the community, helping other nonprofits run a good business.
Well, guys, thank you for being here today. Really want to encourage you not only to take part in the great secret, but afterwards get to know each other. The thing that makes this group great is the people. and the relationships we develop. So thank you for being here. For you guys online, you're for a treat. I think we're still going to do some possible communication afterwards, some networking. So hang on for that. Christy, here you go.
And you introduce yourself a little bit more. Tell us about what you do.
My name is Wayne, as you know. Listen, I'm a frustrated attorney. I'm an attorney by trade. I used to be in the DA's office, did a lot of different litigation things, but now I like to work on business deals. So, from having a company in Europe right now that we're bringing to the US and taking them public, to I've got some deals in Mexico in the energy sector. I've got a cable manufacturer that's state-of-the-art stuff that for transmission of electricity that I'm looking to hopefully get involved in their company and take them to the next level. So I like doing lots of different things. But mainly I like people. I like to engage. I like to build a relationship, and that's why I'm here.
Thanks. We're glad you're here. He came all the way up from San Diego. So we're grateful for his help. I am so pleased to introduce this morning Aditya Rajagopal. He is the CTO and co-founder of ChromaCode. He's going to talk to us today about scaling a business during COVID. You know, it was a very challenging time, and during chaos sometimes comes opportunity, and he and ChromaCode took advantage of that to scale a business for high volume medical testing. We love to hear what innovators take opportunities like this. So we're excited to hear from them this morning. We are going to be having an expanded Q&A, so start getting your questions ready. We will have Q&A at the end, the moderated Q&A, so that everyone can hear us that's online. So please welcome Aditya to Friday Coffee Meetup stage.
Thank you all for having me here. You know, one of my favorite authors, Adeline Yanma, wrote a book called Falling Leaves, and in that she says, falling leaves return to their roots. And so this is me coming back to Pasadena. I grew up here and went to school at Caltech, and I'm excited to tell you about my company that I started, ChromaCode, out of Caltech, but moved away many years ago, and it's exciting to be back to the city. So ChromaCode is a company that does diagnostic tests using the method called the polymerase chain reaction. And you might be familiar with that because a lot of the COVID tests that took place over the last couple of years took place through PCR, and a lot of those tests run in this country were made by ChromaCode. But I wanted to focus on just one aspect of the company today, the code. And I, like other people, didn't really know what coding was when I was going to high school, but in college, I got interested, and I did what most other kids in my era did. I went to Wikipedia and looked it up. And if you go to the Wikipedia page for code, and you go up to the browser, you can actually look at the source code that looks something like this. The question is, what are codes? Well, they're just a way to represent information. So in the case of a website, it's a bunch of markup. That's HTML or the hypertext that you see there. Defines text, it defines links, defines the content that you see on the web page itself. But codes are actually so familiar to us, we actually forget how much we use them. As an example, I might send you a text message saying, hey, what you up to? Because, you know, grammar was never my thing. And you might say walking dog. If you're you know, lazy man like I am, you might actually just do this. And that's a code. And it's a really simple code, and you know what that means. You see the walking man on any street corner when you're crossing the street, and everyone knows what a dog looks like. So with two symbols, I've more efficiently delivered the information than the original text message that you might have sent. So this is a way you can use codes to compact information. So this really gets into the heart of what codes do. They map symbols to their meaning. And the two major uses of code today are one in cryptography and the second in data compression. And I wanted to talk about one of those aspects today with cryptography. This code right here is an ancient code. It's called the Caesar Cipher. And what it lets you do is map a set of letters to a muddled up set of different letters so you can hide your message.
share it as well on Zoom.
Just a second. See. That work? Perfect.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, no worries at all. So if I were to send you guys a text that's an F, and you guys responded with yale, it's not me yelling at you. It's actually me just saying hi and saying hello. And this was a very powerful technique that the Roman army used for encryption. This is how they ensured that messages that they sent from battalion commander to battalion commander stayed secret. And this logistical trick was used for over 2,000 years. But as we evolved our weapons, we went from swords to submarines, we had to evolve our encryption techniques, and we had to develop new codes. So like any hard problem, we took our inspiration from Hollywood. And not that kind of Hollywood, but this kind of Hollywood. During World War II, the Germans had a piece of hardware they built, the Enigma machine, that they used to encrypt information, to generate codes that let them transmit messages from boat to boat, from boat to shore, etc. And until we broke that encryption, we weren't able to effectively assess what the German military was doing. In our case, we needed a system that performed a similar task. And the person who invented that was an actress, Edie Lamar. And this also goes to show that innovation can come from any corridor. Ingenuity is not limited to people that are trained in a particular technical discipline. Edie Lamar was an amazing actress, but she was also an amazing mathematician who happened to define the way we do modern encryption today. She developed a set of codes. Now that same set of codes that she come up with for encrypting World War II communications ended up being used to manage cell phone communications too. There's a company in San Diego called Qualcomm. It was started by a former Pasadena resident. Andrew Viterbi was a postdoc at JPL for a number of years, and I employed there before that. And he came up with a method using similar types of encoding strategies that increased the bandwidth in cell towers. So the typical cell phones we have today, they have 4 radios in them, which is what lets them hand off a call as you're walking from tower to tower. But without these encryption techniques, a cell phone tower would only be able to accommodate couple thousand conversations at once. But with the types of encryption techniques that Andrew Viterbi came up with, this enabled cell towers to increase the bandwidth by 4 times, just with an algorithm. And this innovation has become an essential concept that we use for telecommunications. Without it, we wouldn't have the ability to deliver phone call or internet at high speed and high bandwidth. Now, the same types of strategies that Andrew Viterbi used for cell phone towers, at ChromaCode we used for PCR machines. So the innovation that had come out of Caltech let us take these standard PCR machines and increase the capacity of those instruments by 10 times. And we thought this was an interesting technique when we came up with it in 2012. But when it came time to deliver tests in the pandemic, it became an insane advantage. It allowed us to deliver tests that were better, more accurate, and enabled us to put higher number of markers into tests where others couldn't. And so this is really the technique that let us deliver over 7 million tests during the course of the pandemic for COVID testing. And it's the same technique that we're using to now deliver tests in the oncology sector. The tests for oncology patients today tend to be very expensive because they have to use fancy instruments to match the patient with the right drug or to detect what type of cancer a patient might have. But with this type of algorithmic strategy, what we can do is take the cheaper PCR instrumentation that was previously used for COVID testing, promote that instrumentation to making more sophisticated cancer tests. What this will let us do is deliver better care to patients by making the testing protocols more affordable and more accessible. So that's kind of the story of how we went from COVID testing to oncology testing in a nutshell. Excited to talk to you all today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Aditya. We are going to do an extended Q&A today, both if you're on the Zoom or if you're in the room. Feel free to start asking your questions.
I would like to start by asking if anybody in the audience would like to ask a question. Otherwise, I'm going to get started.
I'm going to get this turned on. I need to get that mic put by.
Okay, is this okay?
Yeah,
Right?
good.
Okay. Aditya, first off, thank you very much for coming and talking to us this morning. And
Thank you, John.
congratulations on your degrees from Caltech, and also the congratulations on your company. My question is going to be centered more about your journey as an entrepreneur. And so, can you tell us a little bit more about ChromaCode? When was it started? And then let's start with that.
Yeah, it's so we started the company in yeah, it's working now. We started ChromaCode in 2012, and it was actually born out of some a failure I'd had previously. I'd started another company, and we raised a bunch of money for it, and it unfortunately didn't work out. And so ChromaCode was a response to the reasons why that other company had failed. It was another diagnostic company in the PCR space, and we were building unique instruments to do diagnostic testing for things like the hantavirus, dengue fever. It was meant for remote diagnostic settings and in the developing world. And unfortunately, some of the cost structures for the way you build the tests made the approach ineffective. And even though we had a lot of support, the Gates Foundation supported us as an example, the company wasn't viable. So ChromaCode was another angle on the same problem. Instead of making instruments to deliver tests in remote locations, can we take the instruments that already exist and make them better, faster, cheaper? And that's how the company was born.
Interesting. And so we have a lot of entrepreneurs here, and a lot of times, and we've had a lot of speakers, and they talk about pivoting. You know, they start a company, they may have a certain idea, might be going a certain direction, they find out that, you know what, this isn't going to be feasible, and so they do what's called a pivot. In your case, it sounds like instead of doing a pivot, you closed that first company and then started the ChromaCode. Is that correct?
That's right. I mean, I think there's lessons learned that you can take from previous careers into any company that you start. But equivalently, speaking of pivots, there's lessons you learn along the way with a company, and it's always important to test whether or not the business model for the company is working. And in the case of ChromaCode, we had built up a set of products that included products for testing for the flu. And when the pandemic came around, we decided, and rightfully so, that the bigger opportunity wasn't in bringing another flu test to the market, it was bringing these COVID tests to the market. So that pivot enabled us to generate a lot of revenue and profits, which then enabled us to tackle a much harder problem in oncology testing.
So originally, ChromaCode was focused on the flu testing, and it pivoted or switched over to COVID because of the opportunity that COVID presented. Is that correct?
That's right. We had a bunch of respiratory targets, flu and flu-like things that we were building a test for, and we had built a couple smaller tests to test for antimicrobial drug resistance, like things like MRSA, and another one to test for some of the bacterial pathogens that cause Lyme disease. And those were interesting applications and meaningful, but it was clear that the bigger opportunities were elsewhere.
Got a question back here, so let's you ask.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, it's amazing. As the pandemic, the dynamics of the pandemic have now continued to shift and evolve. You were able to take ChromaCode and explore new applications of what you built into other areas of oncology, like you mentioned in your presentation. Was there some aspect differentiating your approach that facilitated you shifting? Because I can only imagine there's lots of testing companies out there that are feeling an urge to kind of shift and expand where they were testing throughout the pandemic times. I mean, were there elements of how you structured ChromaCode or the algorithmic approach that helped you?
Yeah, I think there are. It actually goes back to my presentation. Because we use this encoding strategy, the ChromaCode, if you will, it lets us deliver tests that cost us a fraction of what it costs others to make. And because it costs us less, we can enable customers to run them at a lower price as well for things like oncology. So that the economic parts are stacked in our favor because of the algorithmic advantage that we have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I'm just wondering also because there was such an explosion of like physical testing kits over the years. Obviously, whenever something's physical, there's a limitation to what it was designed to get at, but it seems like the way you're talking about data and the way that you might have used that, or I don't know if you use machine learning or deep learning or any tools in the way you built it, but it seems like that might have helped to expand the application of those tests a little bit.
You're right. We don't use machine learning or those types of approaches, but this company was purpose built to use an algorithm to achieve what it otherwise requires expensive hardware to achieve. And that was one of the lessons we learned from the startup before. We built a physical box that cost us a ton of money to build, and it wasn't effective at solving the problem we were solving because it costed too much. So this was a way to let other people build the expensive hardware and for us to just build the test right on top of those hardware boxes. So in some sense, we're kind of like Windows to PC manufacturers. We don't care, HP or Dell runs the operating system. In some sense, ChromaCode doesn't care who builds the hardware. There's a whole bunch of companies. There's a former Caltech company, ABI, that is now Thermo Fisher's PCR franchise. They're the world's biggest PCR box manufacturer. Roche Pharmaceuticals actually sells PCR boxes as well. And ChromaCode just layers right on top of this.
Thank you. I won't keep asking questions, but if you wouldn't mind afterwards, I'd love to grab you a few minutes. I have a friend in the NHS in London that may have some real interest in talking to you. So
Of course, thank you.
And along those same lines, because that was actually an interesting exchange of questions and answers. Well, can you talk about from a business standpoint, what it took to pivot from flu testing to COVID in terms of running a company? Did you have to increase your staffing? Did you have to go out there and look for other people? Because I mean, mostly when you're dealing with coding and encryption and compression and stuff like that, I would imagine it doesn't really make a difference. You can use the same people, but obviously flu testing and COVID, there was an increase in multiples of in terms of the volume.
Yeah, scaling the business in the pandemic was hard because of logistics, things like hiring the right people, finding the right materials and supplies. There was such a series of happy coincidences that led us to being successful during COVID that it's hard to have engineered a better path forward. But sometimes it's just luck. For us, we had been talking with the Gates Foundation on investment into ChromaCode at an earlier juncture before the pandemic had hit. And as part of that, they had mentioned to us early on, hey, we think, just a thought, we think we're seeing information that there's a new virus that's coming out of Asia. Do you think this is something you can look into? And so because they had pointed us in the right direction, we were 3 weeks ahead of the curve before the pandemic was announced by the president in looking into what it would take to build a test to look for COVID-19. And because we had done that work just a little bit faster than everyone else, we were in the perfect position to deliver a test. And I should add to that, because we had done that work, because the Gates Foundation had pointed us there, when one of the first COVID samples had hit San Diego, that was sent to us to look into it to see if we could pick it up. And because we tested that first sample, we caught the attention of the FDA, we caught the interest of a lot of other companies that wanted to run COVID diagnostic tests, and it kind of became a percolation cluster for success.
It's interesting you mentioned luck, because I've heard that from a lot of entrepreneurs. It doesn't really make a difference how smart you are, how much experience you have, and all that stuff. they attribute luck to being a big part of their success, and it sounds like in your case that was also applicable.
I think so. I think it comes down to, you always have to be prepared, but it's always better to be lucky than good.
So talking about the case studies, because the other thing that I was going to ask you about is for companies, having the right investor or partnerships, or where do they get their capital? In the case of Gates Foundation, I would imagine their contribution, besides pointing you into this opportunity that COVID testing, also providing you with some money, some seed capital, or whatever the case may be. Can you talk a little bit about that? How was that relationship formed? Is this non-dilutive because it's a nonprofit organization and they, obviously trying to solve some, big, some world problems when it comes like things like malaria and things like that. Can you go into that with it?
Yeah, sure. Sometimes the relationships you form early in life, they manifest in a different way later on. The guy that was responsible for funding projects at the Gates Foundation was a guy about 15 years ago, had funded some work I and others had done in the defense sector at Caltech. He was at DARPA at the time, and DARPA was run by a former Caltech alum at Regina Dugan, if you're familiar with the name. And through a series, again, of coincidences, we had gotten reconnected. And it was good to have the lens of the Gates Foundation on ChromaCode at that juncture. But I should mention, they didn't actually give us any money. They pointed us in the right direction, and that enabled the company. So even without the dollars, by helping steer the company in that way, we ended up benefiting from it. And it was kind of a small world that we got re-engaged with them because of the prior connection many years previous through Caltech.
So can you talk about how did you come up with the capital to start ChromaCode, even the company before that, because I would imagine that took a certain amount, and then now with ChromaCode, it was probably another business that requires some starter capital, and how did you come about that?
Yeah, it's ChromaCode was a long story in its first financing. It took us almost 24 months to get our first funding, and we were lucky that it was 63 no's before the first person said yes. In terms of venture capitalists, and the venture capitalist that did fund the company is someone I know extremely well and has been involved with Caltech in Pasadena for many years. A guy named Jim Blair. He was for about 15 years the division chair of chemistry and chemical engineering at Caltech, and he has a fantastic story. You guys should have him as a speaker because he's got a exceptional backstory. But when he first started his venture fund, he moved from the East Coast to California, and the very first investment he made was this little pharmaceutical startup out of Caltech called Amgen. And his very first investment was his very best investment. So better to be lucky than good, perhaps. Because of the relationship he had with the Caltech faculty founder Lee Hood, who's since retired, and the institute, he took a look at our company and funded it. And his support enabled bigger venture funds to invest as well, like new enterprise associates that led the next round. So the first 3 million enabled the next 20, the next 20 enabled the next 100. So it was a careful set of investments that helped de-risk the business and gave others comfort to write bigger checks.
You make a really good point, because a lot of times the lead investor, that first investor that writes that significant check, is going to open the doors to other investors, because now they're kind of following or riding their coattails, so to speak, figuring, well, this guy saw the possibilities of Amgen, maybe ChromaCode is going to be the second one that's going to be on that list. And now other investors start joining the party. Now, has a again, one of the things that we've talked about at Friday Coffee Meetups in the past is the difference between a financial investor versus a strategic investor versus a smart investor. Strategic and smart, these are the type of investors that can also help your company Can you talk a little bit about how, besides this first lead investor, how other investors have also helped open up some doors and opportunities?
Yeah, I think I'd just probably say that my experience is that all investors are pretty smart. They care about making money. So placing bets is something that they have to be very good at doing to get the jobs they have. They're managing not their own money, but other people's, retirement funds, pension funds, etc. But the thesis that the investor has is oftentimes unique to a person and unique to a fund. So they fund different stages of risk. They fund different magnitudes of capital, and finding the right fit for the investor, I think is really the art form. Have they invested in the sector that you're starting the business in? Do they have the ability to write the check that you need now and the check that you need 5 years from now? And do they fund your competitors? Are they the right investor but conflicted out? And sometimes it's an art form to find the right folks to support a business. Strategic investors, like companies, as an example, Google is an example of a company that has a prolific venture fund. They funded Uber as an example, as one of their first investments. Those investors can be highly effective if you select them the right way, because they're not just looking for a financial return. The information return that they get from looking at these startups grow is quite effective. So if a large conglomerate wants to understand, are there companies that are going to put us out of business, not today, but 15 years from now? Investing in early stage startups with nominal amounts to get that type of surveillance information is a very, very valuable vehicle.
So your focus now on oncology, was that a result of some of the suggestions or recommendations from your investors, or was that something that you saw as an opportunity because you figured, well, COVID, hopefully eventually it's going to start going away, and you'll have to look at another problem to solve?
No, it was a very purposeful transition that started about a year before the pandemic hit, and what I didn't anticipate is getting COVID to underwrite the effort of building a diagnostic test. We thought we had to go raise a larger amount of money to do that. But we were fortunate that COVID, the profits from COVID enabled us to develop oncology programs faster.
Can you talk about, from a skill standpoint, what you were like before COVID, and then during COVID, and how you had to scale up or boost your human resources in order to take advantage of that opportunity?
Yeah. This was actually kind of an interesting interesting growth for Meetup. Before the pandemic hit, or even at the early days of the pandemic, we were a small company in a single building that's smaller than the floor space you have here. We had 28 people, but the pandemic hit, and we went from 28 to 70 in a period of about 8 months. And we went from 70 to 140 in the next 3 months after that. So it was a kind of an explosive growth that took place. And a lot of those hires were folks that were hired to service the COVID markets. And as the COVID testing volumes dropped, as we knew it would, because we knew the vaccines would be effective, we've now stabilized around about 80 people in the company.
With that kind of human scaling, what was your biggest human resource issue that you faced?
The nature of the pandemic, even in a company that works on products for a pandemic, the nature of the pandemic was such that sometimes you would have people who were hired that never met their boss, because it was all done through Zoom and the interview process. And if they had to be in the labs building tests, they of course would have to be on site. But if they were part of the software team, as an example, sometimes we never got to see folks face to face. So that was a huge challenge, because the typical human interactions that we expect just don't take place. And learning how to connect with other individuals and to work efficiently with colleagues when you can't see them became a challenge for the company, but it's one that we were effectively able to traverse in the first 6 months. And we're actually seeing that framework is paying dividends now. Now we have the ability, in its essence, to hire people that live in any geography. They don't have to move to Southern California in order to work for us. It's actually kind of become an advantage having solved this problem.
What does that framework look like?
I'm sorry.
What is the framework you're
With the touch points,
Yeah.
it's having like as an example, like I had put up a Wikipedia page earlier, having a internal set of resources like Wikipedia, where if you need information on how to do your job better or need other resources, connecting the employees with the right sets of internal tools, right sets of people became a very effective lever, and also having the touch points through Zoom, that when you had questions, there was always someone there that would spend one-on-one time with you, taking you through the protocols and procedures for the company, became a very effective lever. As part of this, though, we've gotten much better at what it means to actually hire someone. And I was of the mindset that, hey, if someone's done something before that's awesome, we should just hire them. We'll figure out a way to make room for them. And I think my intentions were probably good, but for running a business, that's not effective. When you hire people, you have to think about what job needs to be done, what your best guess at the right qualifications are for doing that, and then you have to make a rational choice to hire someone. And it's important to do that right, because when you do that wrong, you not only hurt the person because the job might not work out, but you also hurt the company and hurt everyone else as a part of that process. So because we don't have the comfort of human interactions in assessing people, we have to become much more objective on the types of skill sets we would need for every position. And I think that's made us a much better organization from a hiring perspective.
So two follow-up questions to that. One, so for the benefit of the audience, scaling a company, and especially what we've seen in the past couple of years, the acceptance of remote working, and the Zoom platform for communication, Microsoft Teams, et cetera, and all that. How spread out is your workforce? I mean, you can go after, the best of the best, and they don't have to be, like you said, here in, locally. It could be anywhere in the world, from the East Coast to other parts of the, of the globe.
Yeah, I think our team stretches as far as the East Coast, where we have a couple sales folks, all the way down to Southern California. It's kind of the span, but we have folks in San Francisco. We have folks that live part-time in other states that are very effective at doing the job that we ask them to do without needing to be geographically co-located with the rest of the company.
Okay, so everybody's US based, more or less.
Most, yeah. We have some consultants that are ex-US, but the majority of the workforce is US.
And so from a managing the company standpoint, so I apologize, I'm not sure what your title is at ChromaCode. Are you the CEO, the president, the founder?
I'm one of the founders. I'm the CTO, and I'm on the board of directors as a director there. So I have responsibilities on corporate governance for the board of director perspective, and I have responsibilities on sort of strategic direction and business development as a CTO.
Okay, so you kind of answered my question, because as a CTO, obviously you're going to be more focused on the technology of the company. I was going to ask you a question about the management, because if you start increasing the headcount and all that, that becomes more of a different type of management. And a lot of, so the point of the question is, a lot of founders that we have, they're not the management type. They might be the technology person, they might be the scientist, they might be the engineer, but when it comes to managing company, 100 people, 200 people, et cetera, that they find that, this is not my forte, and hand it off to somebody else. In your case, at your company, it sounds like because your focus is as a CTO, you may or may not have run into that situation.
Yeah, I think learning to manage people, or maybe putting it a different way, learning to make people most effective is probably more of an art form than it is a science. And my experience is that folks that go through formal business education don't necessarily learn those skills. And in the same sense, people that start companies may not necessarily learn those skills either. In my case, I think what has enabled me to be effective as a manager is to hire people that are strictly smarter and better than I am. And that frees up my time to go do other things. As an example, I spend most of my time at this juncture trying to arrange for business deals between ChromaCode and other entities. And the only way that works is if I have people that can manage the technical vision very effectively. So as an example, one of the folks who reports through me was the head of genomics at Google before we hired him, and he is exceptional. He's smarter than I could hope to be, and that's exactly the person I needed to lead our oncology efforts, because that freed up my time to go do other things. And I've seen that as long as others have tried to follow a similar thesis, they've been highly successful at scaling up with the business.
Actually, that's a great piece of advice. I've heard that before. Hire people that are smarter than you are, because now you have a really great team that reports to you, and the success of the team is the success of the entire organization. I need to wrap things up. Is there any questions from the audience? And sitting here, so I wanted to end with something that you were talking about earlier, and that is with your investors and VCs and how they have a fund, but they have to get a certain return or certain exit or return within a time frame because they have to return the capital back to their investors. What is your outlook for ChromaCode in the future? Because you're very successful as a COVID testing platform to increase that. Now you're looking at oncology. What are the investors looking for from ChromaCode, and what do you see ChromaCode in the future?
I think investors are always looking for the business to succeed, and effectively that means you need to make money, and they're willing to bet long range. They're willing to be long-term greedy, as a friend of mine puts it. And so they'll give you 100 million so you can turn it into $1 billion 10 years from now. But if you don't have a pathway to get to that $1 billion outcome, they're not betting effectively with their dollars. So I think their interests are always in building a business. Our interests are to do the same, but we'd like to be in a position where the good that we deliver for cancer patients reduces the healthcare burden, the cost to the patient, the cost to the insurance companies, the cost to the labs that are running the tests. And I think we're in a rare case where we can align all of those economic interests from everyone. So our mission for the next 5 to 10 years is to go make cancer testing affordable. And how affordable is affordable? Well, where I'd like to see it is, if you go out to dinner in Pasadena, maybe $30 for a nice meal. If we can asymptote cancer testing to that cost, cheaper than a COVID test, then we've really achieved something that's going to be impactful long range, and that's what we're doing.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Aditya. I'm very inspired. Please join me in thanking Aditya. We are going to get a photo of you with our illustrious audience here. You can either sit down this way or there's stairs here. We're going to have you guys can come in so we get all of the happy faces for us this morning. So we're actually going to have you face me, and so we'll do one kind of serious, and then I really just like the fun one. But here we go. Ready? Oh, I'm going to give a minute for people to sit. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now do a fun, crazy one. Get the arms out there, people. 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. We actually have an announcement from one of our partners here at Innovate Pasadena, who's going to talk about her own event for Connect Week. Again, Connect Week is starting tomorrow. It runs through all of next week. This was their kickoff event. So you can find out information about the many events at connectpasadena.com. Zenobia, please join us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Chrissy. She's wonderful. She needs an applause. So I'm a founder of the Funding Boutique, and I've been in the area for quite a long time. And what I do is to provide an opportunity for entrepreneurs, innovators, and creators to actually showcase what they do, especially when they don't have an opportunity to really do that. So I've been with Connect since 2017, and my event is Tea, Tech, and Tequila, now Immersive Salon. So it's a technology showcase. I'm a geek, I love technology, but to really get people to come out, a lot of times you have to have a little hook. So we have a tea party with bespoke teas and also a tequila tasting. And so this time I'm really pleased to be able to present a couple of companies that that are doing some really good things that we're going to see down the line that will help us. One of them is called a substance scope, and what that is a touchless system for cleaning stethoscopes, which we never think about that, but it's really, really a nice idea, and it's getting a lot of traction. So I thought that would be nice to showcase from the patient side as well as from the clinician side. So I'm really pleased about that. And there's some other events that are happening also. So I'd love for you to join me. It's next Saturday. It's the end of Connect week. So after all the algorithms and all that good stuff, come and have some fun, see some really cool technology right here in this space next Saturday from 4 to 7 p.m. I am listed on the Connect Pasadena website also. And so also, if you feel like you have a product or a service that you'd like to get in front of the office, I'm really trying to reach out to the Pasadena community, then contact me, and I'm sure we'll find a space here for you to actually showcase your project. Thanks.
Thanks, Zenobia. That'll be a fun event. Next month, we're going to be hearing from Dr. Andrew Wang on blockchain technology, where we're headed, and the future financial system. I know some of you have been waiting very patiently for your coffee. It is now out there, so please feel free to get caffeinated. Thank you so much for attending. We will see you next month.